our goal is to get across our idea, the concept of our fantasy landscape. And mine is an Aesop's Fables landscape with this bridge and high mountains and also kind of ground level features to go with those ancient Greek stories. All right, so now I have this element. And what's interesting is this element that I've already played with is showing pretty prominently here. And I wonder if I have enough overlap. Looks like I do. But if I erase away the sky, I want to make sure there's something behind it, right? So I'm going to show you what's called a tool adjustment. Because the problem with this is it's just so bright. And I don't want it to be so bright because it's forcing itself into the foreground even in front of what I want to put there. So a tool adjustment is where we do the direct adjustments, but we do them with a tool right onto the pixels instead of making a selection first. So first I find the layer that it belongs to, which is this one in the background, right? And now, instead of just choosing that layer and doing image adjustments, direct adjustments like levels, and I can make this darker by, of course, moving the slider. But the problem is that changes things that I don't want it to change in the rest of the image. Maybe make it a little bit darker. So, now we move to new tools. These are called dodge and burn tools. These are photo editing tools, which are really, really helpful when you're compositing with photo pixels, right? So dodge will make things brighter. It's like lightening your midtone slider and levels. Burn will make things darker. And sponge will either saturate or desaturate. The difference is it does it with a tool. So these are the settings we're going to use for dodge and burn. We're always going to do them to the midtones so that we don't blast things out to white or darken things to black, right? Just like when we're using levels. And then we're always going to use an exposure rate that's less than 30 because these are really strong tools. I'm also always going to use a large soft brush, just like with the eraser, with 0% hardness. And now here I can start darkening. You see how it's not darkening up here, even though that's the same layer. It's only darkening with soft edges where I kind of paint it in. This is called burning. Now, as it burns, it's also really saturating it, right? It's getting oranger and oranger as it gets darker. So now I'm going to go to the sponge tool, and I'm going to set it to desaturate. And same thing, I want a large, soft brush. And that will start to gray it down. I don't want it to be black and white. I can have little bits of color in there. Okay, now what's on top of that is this one. And I can use dodge and burn. First to burn it, to make that match, even though they're on different layers, right? And then sponge to desaturate. You can also set sponge to saturate, but that's not usually a problem when you're burning. So now, those layers look a lot better for as I'm going into my foreground to have something behind it. So what do I do with this? Well, now I'm not going to use dodge and burn, which are tool adjustments. I'm going to use the direct adjustments again under image adjustments to the whole layer. And I first go to levels, and I first use this midtone slider to decide if I want to go brighter or darker. I want to go a little bit darker, and I want to limit the highlights just a little bit. And that's it. And now color balance is going to make a big difference. Adjustment color balance, because this is such a yellow lighting temperature. So I'm going to shift those midtones more towards the blue, a little bit more towards the cyan, maybe put a little bit of magenta in there. And then I'm going to go to the highlights, and I'm going to bring that warmth back because I do want it to come forward, but just not as much as it was. And towards the red. Then I'm going to go to the shadows, and I'm going to put the blues back. There we go. And we can see exactly what this does. This is without levels. This is with levels. This is with color balance. So what's the last one? It is hue saturation. Doing a lot of these 3 direct adjustments today. Working from the back forward. And I don't know why it does that, because I did not ever select that layer, but it went to a different, I accidentally did, I guess. So make sure you're on the right layer. Then I go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and then I can shift the hue slider both directions, see if there's one that's better than the other, and it's going to be a little bit towards the magenta, towards the infrared side. And then saturation, do I want to heighten it? No, it's already pretty saturated. I'll just take it down a little bit, just so it fits. Okay, now I'm in better shape. It was here. Whoops, it was here. Now it is here. Like the shadows, all of that, much better shape to start blending and erasing. And what I'm going to do is use the magic wand. And I'm going to, I'm going to go ahead and not have contiguous checked at 32. And I'm going to grab all of this bright sky. And because contiguous is not checked, it's going to get all the little gaps even in between the leaves. Everywhere in the layer. The problem is it's also getting the river and the rocks. So I'm not going to hit delete, because if I hit delete, I'm going to lose all this stuff that I want. Instead, I'm going to go to select and mask, and I'm going to soften it just a little bit, and then say OK. And now instead of deleting, I'm going to use my eraser for blending. And instead of it being at a low opacity, because I want to get rid of the hard edges, I go to 100% opacity, but my brush is large and soft still. Then I go right to those edges of the leaves. Now it's only going to get rid of that blue where it's selected. So there might be other little debris I have to get rid of, or edges I need to find. But this is a way of using your selection as a stencil, so you're only erasing away what you know is safe. All right, and then, so then I can extend that and because I'm using a tablet, it's pressure sensitive. So even though my brush size is huge, I don't need all of that tree. So I can delete it, and then I can go in with my eraser at 100% still, but a smaller size, and kind of dapple and soften to blend this edge. Excuse me. Allergies are big right now. So remember, we have Kleenex in the room. Okay, now that part of the tree is looking okay in terms of how it's cut out. This one needs a little work here. So it's going to go in pretty aggressively with my eraser, 100% opacity, but with a soft edge. And I'm going to find my own edge for this canopy of trees. Every once in a while, letting a little highlight stay there. Mostly letting the rocks come through. And if I want to, if I have enough of overlap, and I do not, then I can keep blending. But you can only blend where you have an overlap, right? So what do I need to do? I need to take this chunk. Actually, I'll use this one. And I need to extend it so there's more background behind. So what did I do? I just moved this big chunk here behind, so it can look like a mountain ridge. And now I'm going to select out just that portion as it overlaps that little gap I need to fill, and then duplicate it. This is called internal compositing, taking from an existing asset layer and using it in an additional way. And then I'm going to erase around it using my eraser at 100% opacity, soft edged, get rid of those hard edges. Actually, it's pretty helpful right there. So I'll keep some of that. But where it's most helpful is that it extends that river side down. So as I erase away from the river, there's something to erase. Okay, now I might want to mask it with my magic wand. Hold down Shift, get even more of it. Computer's really good at selecting empty space, so select all of that. And now I'm going to use, because the hard edge is gone, I'm going to shift to a much lower opacity soft edge brush. And then it just becomes kind of mist on the background. All right. So now, do we need dodge and burn anywhere? I think we kind of need it here. And I think we could use it a little bit here as well. So these are the tool adjustments. So let's play with dodge, which we haven't used so far. It looks like a black lollipop. Same thing, I'm going to do it to the midtones only. I'm going to do it at less than 30. And I'm going to make it really big, really soft. Only the midtones. And then I can decide to brighten certain things. Like the canopy of trees, right? But then what's even more important is going to be sponge. And I'm going to help desaturate some of that. Because that green's a little toxic. And you can see that helps a lot. Right, and then if I use my eraser at 100%, I can start at smaller, up 100%. Soft edge, I can cut away at this edge a little bit, because that's just a lassoed edge when I rough cut. So I kind of bite away at it. It looks a little bit more organic and believable. We're going for believable compositing, not perfect compositing. Just gives our client an idea of the fantasy landscape we envision. And now, this is a nice little trick. I'm going to do a really low opacity erase, like 17%, really large. And I'm going to do what's called ghosting. I'm just going to project it right at the edge. So I'm just taking it down a little bit at the edge, letting that mountain show through the edges of the trees just a little bit in certain places, especially as it goes into shadow. So I'm not masking here, I'm just erasing at a really low opacity. Taking down some of the highlights, letting it be a little softer. Especially where there's like a sun flare on the tree at that point. So I don't love that. And then I can use dodge and burn. In this case, I'm going to use burn. Get some of those shadows back in the tree. So on and on. All right. So now I've got the trees. And luckily that also made everything that goes with that layer, the rocks and everything, help to match. And if I want to finish the blending, I'm just going to transition it at its edges. So now it feels like everything's going into this river.